Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Brooks, and this is my guest and my interviewee, our interviewee for today, James Disco Donnie Estepinal. I like your shirt, dude. Sold out 5 Red Rocks. I got a guy here who can give you that in a display ad in Billboard.
Yeah,
If you
okay.
want to
All
get
right,
to the
all right.
agent world.
Yeah.
You know?
5 Red Rocks. Next time 6. Anyway. I know everybody's thinking like, what am I doing up here? And I'm thinking that as well. So, and my family. So they're like, why was nobody else available?
No, I mean, we had to find we have a guy who traveled the furthest possible to be here. Donnie James Disco, you operate your business in Texas and Florida, and yet you're based in Puerto Rico. Explain that. How do you operate out of Puerto Rico, and why?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very mobile business. I mean, especially like in the last 10 years. But
Yeah.
I've been in Puerto Rico about 15 years, and I married a Puerto Rican and wanted to raise my family there, and so I've been there, and luckily the business adjusted now where everybody's mobile, so
Right.
It's not that big of a deal.
How much stuff do you do in Puerto Rico, though?
How's the?
I mean, how many shows do you have? Do you do a lot in Puerto Rico? Or?
I don't do that much in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Right, I'm sure it is.
Right,
I'm
right,
sure.
right. Yeah.
But you get you're not the first disco, right? You come from a lineage of discos. You're telling me about your family growing up in New Orleans. Your dad was in the show business. Tell us about your early life for people who don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm a disco junior actually. So basically, my dad was a lawyer. He went to graduated from college in 3 years. Went to law school. Opened his own law firm. Got married, had a kid, and he decided that he didn't want to be a lawyer,
Right.
a father, or a husband. So
It's hit the reset button.
but he made it to the pinnacle.
Right, yeah.
And he was like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. So he left. Or maybe, if my mom says she threw him out, I'm not really sure. There's an argument there.
Right.
So when I was like 7 or 8, he disappeared for a year. And when he turned back up, he was a DJ
Yeah.
at a nightclub, and his name was Disco Jim. This is the 70s, right?
Right.
So he was popping.
Yeah.
He had it going
on.
He was going, he had a lot of stuff going
This is
on.
in New Orleans.
Yeah, he was in New Orleans. It was this crazy scenario where he lived in an RV, and it was at a country club, with a golf course, swimming pool, and nightclub. So
Disneyland.
And he lived there at that place in an RV.
Yeah.
So as an 8-year-old, I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Right,
You
yeah.
know? So I was like, I want to live with Dad. And my mom was like, oh, no. So yeah, that was my introduction into the whole nightlife scene. I saw a lot of things that probably I shouldn't have seen, and it was very open back then.
Right, and you were hesitant too, right? I mean, we talked about this before. Before you got in the State Theater, you had come to appreciate the kind of burgeoning rave scene, but you weren't quite sure you wanted to make it a living yet, right? You wanted to make it better.
Oh, about getting in the rave scene? No, I was on the straight and narrow. I had come back home I had gone to school in Baton Rouge. I was engaged to my high school sweetheart. I had gone to school for accounting.
Yeah.
So I was going to take over my mom's CPA firm. So I was working for her. She's paying me like $6 an hour.
Right. Okay.
I was like, oh no, like this is my life. So, and I was young, and I was basically thinking this is going to be my next 40 years.
Yeah.
And I just felt like something was kind of missing. I started waiting tables at night at a restaurant to actually make some real money. Since my mom wasn't paying me.
Right.
Sorry, Mom. And so, yeah, basically I went into an event, and, I had been chasing something different.
Yeah.
In New Orleans all the time. I had been to the goth clubs. I had been to like the gay clubs, and I had been to like these video bars. So I had seen all these people like in their own subsections. but none of those were like a perfect fit for me. But when I walked to my first rave, it was basically all these people were together,
Yeah.
partying together. So it was, they basically had the drag queens and the b-boys, and I'm like, you guys all hang out together,
Right. Yeah.
What didn't you tell me? Like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't I know about this? So that's when I kind of got excited and about the scene, and I dove right in. From that minute forward, I like never looked back. I basically was like, they didn't have a lot of people at it.
Right.
But the people they did have were so diverse, and it just so special. And with the music and everything, how nice everybody was, it was like, I got to be involved in this. And so the next day I was at the thrift store buying clothes. I went 100% in.
You became Disco Donnie.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I was already him. I just
Yeah.
took off the the glasses.
Right. Or you put on the
yeah.
Jeff.
No, yeah. I don't know how it works, but
So what you started doing show promotion, you started street teaming, right? I mean, how did you go from kind of being hanging around to a guy who was putting on your own shows and doing stuff at the State Theater?
I basically I was taking flyers off the table and just passing them out and inviting my friends to parties and stuff like that. And
Just being a sinister kind of?
yeah,
like,
just like on my own.
Yeah.
And people started noticing it, and somebody wanted to hire me, and I'm like, no, I have 2 jobs. I'm just doing this for.
Yeah.
I'm
You're an
just doing
accountant
this-
and a waiter.
I'm like, yeah, I got 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And so. Basically, I was like, I don't want to make any money off of this. I just want to make more people come, and I don't want them to be left out like I was. So basically, the guy's like, no, I'm going to pay you. Go out every night, promote. Here's 5,000 flyers. So I got rid of those flyers, and it was hard to pass out flyers in 1994 with artists that nobody knew was. Like,
Right.
I'm giving them like something that's Chinese. Like, okay,
Yeah.
then nobody knows what this is. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fun. Just you have to sell it. You just
Yeah.
can't give a flyer to somebody, and so you had to really work it and tell people why they should go to this event. And yeah, I just remember there was like 600 people there. It was like the biggest event in New Orleans. And at the end of the night, the guy gave me like 2 hits of ecstasy.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, of course, I ate them right away.
Right.
And then I said, well, that's not a lot.
That's not enough.
And then
I deserve more than that.
It's not even hitting me yet.
Right.
So, but that's when I realized that the next person that asked me to work to promote their show, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, give me 50% of the door.
Right. Okay.
So I was kind of
So you're pretty
forced.
savvy then.
I was forced into the business
Yeah.
by ecstasy.
Well, speaking of ecstasy, actually, we'll get into that in a second. So how?
Segue.
Yeah. So how did you? I keep the State Theater. Eventually, you get your own venue, right? You had kind of been this promoter. You had seen how the promoters and the venues operated. The venues can be sometimes kind of shisty, but you figured out a way to make your own space yours. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the original stuff that we were doing was a lot of it was in warehouses, and we would lie to the owner and tell him we were a fraternity party or something like that.
Okay.
And, yeah, so like the original stuff that we were doing was very, and we were very young and stupid.
Yeah.
With, no security, serving alcohol, no age limit, no
insurance, right.
nothing, no permits.
Didn't you
We
rent out-
would get one cop, and he would watch the front. So that was like our big protection there.
Didn't you once in a hot day rent out meat lockers to throw a rave in?
Yeah, I went for a month. We told a guy we were a sound company, and that lasted. Yeah.
And you were still investing in a meat locker.
Yeah, it didn't smell that good. So. But yeah, so but basically, eventually, I realized at some point, as the scene kept growing, that we had to get into like a legitimate venue, and that's when we found State Palace Theater. And I was very lucky because it was kind of when, the whole grunge thing was
Tapering off.
so they were looking for more business. So I was able to book 12 dates in 1 year, and nobody in the U.S. could do that, right?
Yeah.
So I could have my 6 months in advance already booked out, and people knew that venue was safe. because a lot of venues were still getting shut down, they weren't legal and stuff like that. So that's when, and it was in New Orleans, right?
Okay.
So New Orleans is a very special place on its own that people like to travel to. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there all the time. So we weren't that weird. We were like kind of like just another, like an additive to what's going on in New Orleans, because there's like crazier stuff going on in New Orleans than raves. So
right, but so the fans knew, like, hey, this is a Disco Donnie event, this is State Theater. I'll buy a ticket. It'll happen. The artists know, like, they'll get paid and they'll show up, right? I mean, it was regular business.
It was just regular. It was. I mean, it was. I took a lot of shit because it was on Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
And so but it was at the time I understood what because we had like a special, at the time we had some special underground scene that we were trying to keep, but in the end to grow and to make it safe and better for everyone.
Yeah.
And to expand it to more people, we had to go legal. And so there was people upset with me, but it was a natural progression.
Right. But so going legal though, I mean, as you're going legal, quote unquote, right? You're being legit. There are forces at play. There are forces in the government who are wondering, is this guy legal? Is this guy on the up and up? And the Rave Act passes, right? Joe Biden famously passes the Rave Act, which creates certain penalties for businesses that where drug activity can take place, right? What tell us about, like, were you targeted by this law, and what happened? Disco Donnie and the Rave Act.
No, well, that was at the time, like at one point, like the DA came to my house at like 6 a.m. in the morning, and roused me from whatever I was doing, and I came downstairs, and they basically were like, that we're watching you, and basically we want to, we want you to stop doing shows, and you're killing people, and blah blah blah.
In the background, I don't mean to, like, the premise is that, like, you're doing raves, people do drugs at raves. There's like, it's your fault. Right. It's not. I'm not selling them the drugs, and I'm not giving it to them. But I'm creating the environment where they are doing them. So, and there's crack house laws at the time.
Yeah, and this is 90s, and then so they come to my house, and I tell them, they ask me who the drug dealers are, and then I'm like, I don't know, and then they offer me a job, and they ask me what I'm getting paid a year, and they're basically like, we'll pay you triple. And like, I don't know. They give me a card and they leave.
This is the feds, or this is
the DA?
Okay,
the
local, yeah.
The mirror glasses. It was like fucking sabotage.
Yeah.
It was them. So anyway, basically, I think, well, I'm in the clear. We're boys now. I got their card.
Yeah.
They'll call me.
You mean you're calling one?
Yeah, they'll call me if they need anything. I'm just gonna call them. Thanksgiving dinner, maybe. But no.
Right. Yeah.
So at one point, they ended up raiding our venue, and they raided it before the show, and luckily I was like still primping, and I was
getting ready.
Yeah, I was getting ready, whatever. And so I'm in the car, and this is like, cell phones are brand new, so my cell phone was giant.
Yeah.
And then somebody calls me and like, don't come here, the DA's here. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So then
so they're raiding you. Wonder what. For what reason? I wonder what.
They had a They had a theory, and they had gone in front of this was all public knowledge. They had a theory that we were basically bringing the drugs out into the shows before the events, and that we were selling them from backstage with VIP passes. So they ended up like opening up all the speakers and all the turntables and searching all the employees. So the feds, their theory was you were a drug dealer.
You were basically laundering drugs through the business.
That people were coming there not for the artist, or for the music, or for the scene. They were coming there to buy drugs, and we were supplying those drugs.
Right. Yeah.
Because that was the only way they
could. This is a giant conspiracy, basically.
Because we had security and we had everything, so they watched all that.
Yeah.
And so, but they raided the place. I think one bartender had a joint on him or something. So they left with like they confiscated like glow sticks, and they considered all that drug paraphernalia at the time.
And they took. I remember you telling me they took iron. They were ripping the speaker faces off and stuff.
They tore everything up, and I stayed at I camped out. There was a restaurant underneath the venue, and I camped out there, and I was telling the promoters we had like 4,000 tickets sold. So I was like, everybody was in line. So I just said, hey, just wait, we'll see. We're gonna open up the doors. And so they got tired. They were in there like at 8. So they're like, it's 10. So they had to, they went to leave. I was sitting in the restaurant. The DEA agents came in, and I walked right out behind them, and I walked to the front door, and we opened the doors, and they were pissed.
Yeah,
they weren't happy.
Because they could have shut you down basically. I mean, was there a point saying call the show or no?
They were like, they thought that
they
thought I was going to stop doing shows because they had busted us, but they didn't bust me with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it all in my pocket.
But you were charged though. You were charged.
They charged us. Yeah, so they did tell us before they left. They said, hey, have your lawyer contact us. And so on Monday, that next month, we did the show. They weren't happy with that. They weren't able to stop us. And basically, on the next Monday, we went in, and the lawyer was like, "Are you?" My partners, the venue owners, had their wives there and stuff, and just me, dumbass young me. I'm like, oh, this is like a game. And so they said, "Okay, sit down." It's like, okay, well, they're charging you with the crack house law.
Uh-huh.
So for the they've been to 8 of your shows. So the drugs that they purchased at your shows, that's 18 years. And so right away, one of the wives goes down, like in the little chair, crying and stuff like that. And then it's like, well, that's not the worst part. They're charging with a CCE, which is a continuing criminal enterprise, which is they use for the mafia, and that's 20 to life. And then that's when I fell on the floor.
I mean, these are racketeering charges, right? This is what you hit the mob with. I mean,
yeah. I was like, damn.
So they're saying by running this place, you're knowingly running a drug operation, even though there was no connection to you in any of the drug sales or whatever. It was just totally kind of
it was
a theory, really.
If you read the law, it's kind of crazy because anybody that worked at that venue, the bartenders, the security, everybody could be charged with this. So they use all that, and the criminal justice scene. I mean, the criminal justice system is crazy and I didn't really have any money at the time, but at least I had something. And so, but the way they put you into that, I mean, they were like, we're gonna have 100 agents on this. This is a big case. It's a test case, and we're gonna go down and take down all the rest of the promoters. And so we're gonna put all this money into it. We're not gonna let you go. We win 99.9999999%. They never stop saying that 9. You're like, shit, 99.999999999. Like, damn. Well, who won that 1.0001%? Like, so, you're like, wow, you have to really think about it. And they threaten you. They're like, we're gonna arrest you on TV, and your mom's gonna see you, and the people you went to high school with. I said that Mr. Mann is gonna see me. He's gonna see me on TV. I was like, so I mean, you get scared.
Oh,
yeah.
But you didn't back down. You held out.
I held out. Luckily, they announced people thought it was like tax evasion or drug sales or something like that. They held out. My lawyer was like, my lawyer was showing me what jail I was gonna stay in.
Nice.
Like, look, it's just grass here, and there's like a basketball court, and you just can't cross there's no fence. You just can't cross the street. I'm like, oh, that's not too bad.
Right.
You start thinking like that, right? I mean, it's like, okay, I can play basketball. It's grass. Okay, that's better than my house. So, no, really, I was like, you have to think about it because there's the justice system. It's weighing life or 1 year, right? Yeah. So I had to think about it.
Oh, so they didn't offer out. They had an offer.
Yeah, they had to offer for 1 year. They just wanted to get me so they can get everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's what they kept telling me. So they announced their case, and it just kind of totally went over like a lead balloon. Like it was on talk radio, Newsweek, Time Magazine, Peter Jennings. Like I was doing all this stuff, and people were like, "This isn't real, right?" And people writing letters into the papers like, "You can't keep drugs out of prison, and you're going to put this guy in jail for being a promoter."
Yeah.
So then the ACLU got involved, and then I had support from the whole nation. And then I'm like, yeah, fuck you. I'm all right. I was right. I wasn't ever taking that deal. Never. I didn't even think about it. I'm standing up.
And you won.
Well, I didn't win.
No charges.
No charges. I'm still.
No charges.
I'm
It's a
still
win.
Here. They haven't
That's
got
a win,
me yet.
baby.
They haven't got me yet. When I walked out, they said they were going to get me. At some point.
Yeah.
So we got some time.
Yeah. So then you were we got 10 minutes. We want to hear about Bob Silverman. And that the craziness of what you were trying to form SFX. So ultimately, you kept building this career. You began doing a lot of work. Why don't you tell us about kind of work you did with Insomniac, and kind of set us up into going into meeting Bob Silverman and trying to create the world's biggest raving company.
So like in the 90s, I started like basically working with other people in different markets and stuff. I started working with Pasquale here in LA, and then we stopped for a little bit, and after the whole like crack house thing came, then basically we started working together again. We started building up kind of Insomniac as like a national type of company. And then
California was open. This is not in Oregon. People wanted to do business here.
Yeah. Well, so basically, they were going after everywhere, but it didn't work out. The cases didn't work. People didn't. Yeah. The public didn't buy it. You're talking about 25 years ago. So it's a different world, right? So you had to. But now, like basically, I was working around the country. I worked with Pasquale. We were building on Insomniac, taking EDC to Orlando and New York and Chicago and Dallas and Denver and beyond Wonderland, Seattle. So I started working on that. At some point, as sometimes some of these things happen in business, like people have a disagreement,
right,
or falling out,
right.
Yeah. You ever heard of that?
I've heard of those before.
I'm really good at making deals. I'm just really bad at contracts.
Right.
Yeah. So.
So you guys had a falling out. You told me you went to a meeting, and the other people at the meeting who were supposed to be doing a big deal in Insomniac didn't know who you were, and that was a troubling sign to you, right? You were like,
yeah, I don't know if I can discuss this, but let me tell you a story. Like at some point, Pasquale, I was living in Puerto Rico. He's here. Yeah. He's doing all the meetings and stuff like that. So I'm playing his card here. Like he's probably like, Donnie's not doing shit. Like right. I'm not getting any benefit from the previous times. So he's like, oh, you don't own any of this stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't agree with you, but let me go see what's out there. Yeah. And so I went and met with Live Nation AG, and they were like, we've been meeting with Pasquale for 6 months, and he never mentioned you. I was like, oh, shit. Right. I am toast.
Right.
That was like all I needed to know, right? So they gave me the answer right there. That was like, those are all your shows in the country? I'm like, yeah. Like, oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's when I knew that it was time to kind of, even though I was shown the exit, that was time for me to run out the exit.
Right.
So basically, I freaking created a deck about rolling up EDM, other EDM promoters and companies and like-minded people, and
this is a big idea. You wanted to create the world's biggest raving company.
It had been discussed. It wasn't. It wasn't like a unique idea. It had been done before in other businesses and stuff. So it wasn't like something that. But I at that point put it into motion.
Yeah.
So maybe I was a facilitator. I might not have been the idea person. So, but So I met with Ron Burkle out here. Like literally, but by the time I had that meeting with Pasquale, in 4 weeks, I had an offer to do it, and then another 4 weeks later, I met Bob Silverman, and he was like, "Oh, I'm in 100%." And he's like, shook my hand. He's a done deal. So I was like, okay, how much do I have to spend? He's like, $1 billion. I said, $1 billion? Okay, well, I was like, when do I start? He's like, as soon as you leave here. So that's what I did.
So what? $1 billion. What were you like? You were buying concert promoters, you bought sound, you bought music companies. You were buying. I mean, what was the how did it work? Obviously, you weren't spending cash, right? You were buying stuff in stock and special deals, right?
I mean, look, I didn't really. I was kind of obviously not. I was a kind of a rookie to how those deals work.
Yeah.
So he didn't really actually have that money in the bank.
Right.
So sort of asked that question, like, say, let me see your bank account there. Like, show me your phone. But so anyway, next time, I got this. So he basically, yeah, I mean, some of it was stock, some of it was cash. I was basically using my relationships to bring people in and meet with Bob, and he's very eccentric.
Yeah.
Like he would have like on these wig hats and like "fuck you" T-shirts, and people are like, there's people from like Amsterdam, and
Right.
they come in their suits, and this guy's sitting here laying on the table, like when they walk into the meeting, and he's like, you're gonna remember this meeting, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna remember this meeting. So it was interesting to say the least, and yeah, I mean it was crazy times, and a lot of people that had been working very hard in the scene were able to actually kind of realize some kind of financial gain.
Yeah.
And so it felt good for me to be able to introduce those people to that. It didn't work out for everyone.
Right.
But I think the theory and the plan was good. The execution just didn't work out.
Right. It's a complicated thing to do. You know, obviously, to roll up a company like that, consolidate it, and then flip it to somebody else. It's a stock market play, right? And like a lot of, I mean, you know, a company after it went through reorganization and went to bankruptcy, it was operated as a company, right? Its debts reorganized. You're put in a position now you could run this company, but in the heart of the pandemic, you know, April 2020, when the concert business is completely shutting down, you're offered a gig to run the company for the capital partners, but instead you decide to do something else. What did you decide to do?
Yeah, I mean, so you know, we had the bankruptcy at SFX. I guaranteed to everybody that I'd hired that they would not lose money. I would pay them through some fake invoices or whatever, right? I'm gonna have to pay. I hired you. This is how this business works. You know, no agent's gonna let me walk away from some offer that I put in. It doesn't matter what a court says. So that all that was just nonsense. So I had to pay everyone anyway. So then we started this new company called Lifestyle, and I had already.
That's the reorganized company.
Yeah, the reorganized company. They had bought the old debt, and we had already. There was somebody was interested in buying my company, which was actually like my name and my people. People had been with me like 20 years and stuff, and I had a fiduciary responsibility to kind of entertain this, and I was like, I didn't like it. I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't. It was somebody that didn't make me feel like. Yeah. Warm inside. Yeah. So I had already started the conversation. Like I wanted the first right of refusal to buy my company back if an offer was made, or at least to match that. And so this is all like literally like 3 or 4 months before COVID hit. And, you know, basically right when the whole market shut down, whatever, March 12th, 13th or whatever, you know, of course, my dumb ass goes online. I'm like, we're giving everybody refunds and blah, blah, blah. You know, yay! Happy COVID. And so, you know, the people like that are my bosses are like, hey, you can't give refunds. You can't say that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if we're not going to give people refunds right now, like when are we going to give it to them, right?
Yeah.
And so like we got to take it back. I'm like, I'm not taking it back. You know, it's like, it's just out there now.
Yeah.
Like, we'll figure it out. And then they were like, well, we need to start talking about layoffs. I'm like, we're 1 day into this.
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
1 day. And so I was like, that's it. I'm taking the company back. So literally,
you're buying it back.
I'm buying it back. I'm crazy. And so by literally,
you did it.
This is March 12th, 13th, shut down. People are getting fired at laid off at agencies that have been here like 10 years. And then by April 1st, they had the company back.
Wow.
Like a big dummy. A big dummy. Don't do that. Don't buy your company back. So stupid.
Well, and you have it. You're operating it today, and unfortunately, man, we are out of time. We want to hear, but unfortunately, we're out of time. But you have. I mean, I think you've had your wins and you've had your losses.
So this is like episode 1.
I know. So I'm gonna ask everybody to give a hand to Disco Donnie for being incredible interviewing. Whatever our life lived, huh?